Chef, it's this folder on my desktop.
Let's get to the be patient.
Chef, it's this folder on my desktop. Basically, so, I mean, like, the thing I've been working on last, it's almost a couple of weeks, is taking our current server setup and sort of doing a few things, turning it more Amazon way, since we started consulting directly with the Amazon dudes. They've been great help, and I've learned quite a bit from them. So part of what we originally, it was almost like probably like 10 years ago now, we jumped on right scale shit back when like Amazon was sort of in its like infancy and didn't have any cool features, and basically you just build up servers and that's about it. So RightScale provided a whole bunch of added services like scaling and stuff that was really cool at the time, but now Amazon can do it, so why do something else? So when we set up Payroll Hero, we sort of followed what we knew, and that was the RightScale setup. But now we're trying to liberate from that and just do it the Amazon way. So it was a bit of a learning exercise for me, actually like learning the regular Amazon way. RightScale's thing, which says, yeah, here's scripts that run at boot. One installs Apache, one installs whatever, here's your server. So an average server boot up would take like anywhere from 20 minutes to half an hour, just because it had to like install every package and to actually get it to work. It wasn't exactly a lot of fun. So I started doing it the Amazon way. The first thing I kind of wanted to avoid is having to actually manually deal with these instances, because they're a pain in the ass to actually have to go through and like update them and install SSH keys on them. Like every one of our senior engineers is able to deploy to production, so I needed an easy way to be able to send SSH keys over and stuff. So I looked briefly at Puppet. I probably spent about maybe 2 days with it. At the end of the day, its custom like configuration language was more of a crutch than anything. It just kind of felt awkward. I guess maybe that's just a bit hard. So Chef is basically pure Ruby. Your configuration files are Ruby, your recipes are Ruby. You can do whatever you want with Ruby with it. So you'll commonly see little blocks like this, dependencies. I need to install these packages. Well, here's an array. Just, I need that package.
Go.
And you have these blocks of, like package this, action, whatever, in this case upgrade, install, upgrade, whatever. And it basically it's essentially like a state machine. Like Chef is essentially a state machine for system resources. So it's like this package, I need that to be in a certain state. So I can say, oh, that package should be uninstalled or whatever. So basically, you set up different resources, and resources mean things. So like, let's look at something simpler. Oh God. So God is a gem package. Well, this is actually the what are these called? Opscode's default God package, God thing, but it's a nice example. So God is a gem, so gem package God. We need a directory and etc. God .conf d, and it's supposed to be owned by these guys, and that's its mode and stuff. So you just kind of set up these resources, and you say, this is my ideal state. I want them to be in this state. And Chef just looks at these things and goes like, okay, well, you're not an ideal state. You're supposed to be like that, and it just sets up each thing that way. It's able to use ERB templates for config files, so you can just throw a bunch of variables into a config file, and it'll generate it for you. And it supports services, so it actually interacts with your system services, so you can say, oh yes, now, so I mean, this thing right here, it actually generates the init file for it. And then the service action is able to actually interact with the init, saying, okay, you're supposed to be disabled, so basically don't start at boot. I don't like starting at boot just because in my boot process I want a little bit more control over what happens.
That's an environment setting.
Because God's gonna want to keep my app up and running, which
Maybe you
It
don't.
may not be installed yet.
Yeah.
So I start that up later.
Mm.
So for now, it's like in the initial recipe, it's just set to disabled, and unless the environment no start is set, it will start it. So you can just set an array of the states like start and disable. You can see like this is Ruby, so I'm using Ruby with like arrays and stuff. So Chef, I guess the most default way of running Chef is through the use of Chef server. So you'd have a server running Chef server, and it is sort of like a central server where all your servers ping back to, and they go, hey, what's going on? What should I do? Except that with my experience with it, it's actually quite limiting because each server that works with Chef server needs to register with it, and they have like a whole like private key exchange system, and you have to like physically approve the server actually joining the Chef server, and it's a very hands-on operation, which I don't want for auto-scaling things. It's like, I want the server to boot up and have its shit just happen. I don't want to have to like approve that server to come on, and even if I had to like deal with Chef server and actually like poke its APIs by whatever servers you have pending, just approve it. It just seemed like a useless exercise. So I went with the alternative, which is Chef Solo, which essentially you just tell it, this is where you get your recipes, this is your node configuration JSON file, enjoy. So our recipes are stored in S3. You just download the tarball. It's built into the configuration, of course.
In the end, can you just boot up a raw Linux system and have it install all this stuff? And like, what does it do? Like, you type a command and it does it?
So, I mean, ideally you don't want it to do all this stuff at each boot because it takes time.
But if you're spinning up a new image or something.
So, this is how I use this. Right now, I mean, I have a bunch of Bootstrap scripts here. The rake file essentially does two things that really matter in the end. It sends a couple of files over to rsync and SSHs in and runs the Bootstrap file that it sent over.
Okay.
On a naked server, you're not even going to have Ruby, you're not going to have Chef.
Right.
So you have to install that.
All that, yeah.
And that you can't do with Chef because chicken and egg thing. So Bootstrap script takes care of installing Ruby gems, dependencies, Chef. And then from there, you can pick it up and actually Chef can do the rest. This Bootstrap script you only need to ever use when you're creating your AMI the first time.
Okay.
You have a naked, like, clean Ubuntu setup, it's great. Bootstrap, install Chef, now you're set.
That's like a one-time effort, right?
It's a one-time effort. So you once it's bootstrapped, it feeds off the actual recipes, and in its most basic form, again, this is a bit of a hacked-up example, but it runs off of two files: SoloRB, which again is a bit of a hacked-up example, but there's two main sort of settings it uses. It uses JSON attributes, which is a URL to a JSON file to feed its node configuration from, and a recipe URL, which is again a URL to a tarball of all the recipes it's ever going to use. Even ones it doesn't use, just it's like the library of recipes it's going to have access to. So the JSON attributes, again, I'm doing bad evil things to this here because I'm basically using the AWS SDK to generate signed URLs to these files, so they're actually not available to anybody on the internet. You've actually is able to download them fresh each time, properly signed. And then I did a small little hack to the actual Chef runner, so that I'm able to override the run list, because Chef Solo is really made for slightly smaller deployments where you just have like one server and you have one set of run lists, or you have a separate list of JSON files for each one of your servers. I wanted this to be a little bit more flexible, and I wanted to take advantage of the concept in Chef called roles, which you normally mostly use with Chef server.
Oh, you
with
use
Solo.
them as users.
I use them almost, I use them as server templates.
Ah.
So like for example, Jenkins master, the run list is role. So role is like a template of a bunch of things bundled together. So the role for Jenkins master runs the role all servers, which then all servers runs a bunch of stuff, and then it can override attributes, which you can basically, again, with chef server, you can set these little variables on each one of the nodes, but this is a little bit of a hackish way of doing that without chef server. But it's all kind of here inside of the roles, which makes it simple enough. And the only thing is, normally you can't really, like Chef's Solid doesn't give you the ability to even use roles. You can't assign a role to a server. So I made this little hack right here, which basically, well, right here, if the role file name exists, which is a stupid little text file with the role name in it, it gets the role name, and then basically overrides the run list to initialize with that role. So whatever that server is, it simply just says, oh yeah, your role batch, your role Jenkins, whatever. That way, it can use these nice role recipes. Because you can't have node recipes. If you could just have node recipes, that would work. But I needed a dynamic way of not having to like change stuff too much on each server in order to have a different configuration for each one. So ended up with the roles feeding off of this stupid text file, which is like role_name and just has the role name in it. And then I'm just definitely set that role. Anyway, so normally Bootstrap loads up all this stuff on the server. What I normally do at that point, once it all finishes, I just AMI that. So now that might have taken half an hour. Now the server boots up in 2 minutes or whatever.
Right.
So this thing kind of helps if you are having multiple servers with the same group. Or
Yes.
servers,
Or app servers, back servers, Jenkins slaves, whatever.
In this case, having like node specific conflicts doesn't really make any sense because
No.
you would rather like to have role specific.
Yes. And again, with Jenkins server, I'm sorry, chef server, you can assign roles to nodes. But in this little hack, I
this one deals with
made role a primary sort of resident of the system where the servers just assign roles. So it just lets me template that easier. But the general idea is clean AMI boots up.
Just a question. So that file resides in the node, right?
Yeah, well, they're named files, basically, wherever. So it lives in a folder on the node.
Yes.
So that's part of the AMI.
Oh, okay.
So the Bootstrap process would drop that off initially.
So the Bootstrap script basically rewrites that file?
The Bootstrap script is run once when you create it.
Yes.
Where does it get the file?
But if you are having like
You
multiple
pass
nodes,
it in as part of your Bootstrap command line.
yes, but if you are having multiple nodes, and let's say there are 5 app servers, then how do you determine like
Rake install remote user at host using key file role node. Yeah.
On a lighter note, when we last talked, our CI run was 3.5 hours. We brought it down to 150
an hour?
Yeah.
Just under an
Oh
hour.
yeah, yay!
But we don't have the
Awesome.
number. We don't have the number on the current green run because CI has been miserable lately. But
CI has been bleeding for a
we've
while.
actually made it a little bit more parallel, so it actually probably is closer to half an hour.
yes, it runs in 35.
Yeah, so that's even better.
If you want to ask Pete how you did it
That is like the same.
while he's eating pizza.
So anyway, so this is Chef, and the Opscode guys, they have a huge Git repository full of recipes ready baked for a lot of stuff. I find that I end up hacking them and changing them slightly, so I just end up copying it into the app. I don't reuse the repository directly, but it's definitely a great starting point. If you need anything, they have a lot of like studied. Oh yeah, and the biggest reason I ended up wanting a setup like this is to to do really simple things. Like I wanted to be able to basically give all our developers their SSH keys on the servers.
Give me copies.
It's on video.
It's the public bits, who cares? But without having some automated system to do that. Like, that's the other thing, every like 2 minutes on the servers it reruns itself so that it re-updates its configuration every 2 minutes. So that's
It's the client.
yeah. So all I have to do is like add one more key to this configuration, run rake push, which uploads it to S3, and 2 minutes later all the servers have all the keys I need on, or have some updated package or whatever.
Also work with VMware.
In what capacity?
I mean,
It's gotta be less vague than that.
you describe using it to prepare AMIs. So
There's nothing specific about Amazon to this.
yeah.
I mean, if you, as
Can
long
you
as you're,
use it
as long as you're putting up a Linux of some sort, or
Configure.
Unix of some sort, really.
Mm.
And I think people have even made Chef recipes for Windows if you really wanted to.
Yeah, that would be really good for something
For Brian.
What?
But again, I mean, Windows automation is a whole other world of pain, and you'll have to
yeah.
explore it outside of this outside of this topic.
So out of this Ruby group.
And it's kind of my off-the-cuff Chef thing. I think Chef is great because you're able to modify it. It's Ruby, and ultimately your recipes are Ruby. So, like SSH known hosts, I hacked that together myself. I think no, I didn't write that one. What did I write? Wow, I wrote here obviously.
So that comes with Chef.
But like simple prompts like that. I mean, like God monitor comes as part of the God scripts that are part of Opscode. And God monitor, roll call checker, config, roll call checker.god. That's it, done. This config runs off of a template in here, roll call checker.god, which then has ERB placeholders for random things, and
These modules are all defined by
like probably 75% of them. Decision on host, servers mine, RVMs. I don't think it's even theirs, it's somebody else's. Postfix is theirs. God is theirs, and database might be theirs, yeah.
Any questions?
Okay. That's about it. Questions?
Questions?
Comments? Violent reactions?
Anybody want pizza? You raising your hand?
Yeah, so how often do you update your AMIs? Like,
That is a question asked too early. I only rolled the AMIs like a week ago. So
Still figuring that.
yeah, we're still figuring out our flows around them because we've been sort of in non-AMI land for too long. I'm kind of learning this stuff from scratch. I've been insulated from the Amazon way. But it seemed like, so I mean, we try to burn into the AMIs as much as possible. At boot, it has to, of course, download the latest code for the app. I do not want to put the actual app into the AMI. I do not want to burn new AMIs every time we deploy, multiple times a day.
Yeah. Not counting hot fixes.
So it downloads the app from S3 each time. But otherwise, all the libs and stuff are all pre-installed. So that's kind of nice. But our deploy process, I mean, other than system libs, this deploy process is set up to install the gems and stuff on its own. Lib makes it easy enough. So, like, they don't need to be updated that often. I mean, there's going to be some kind of a sysadmin chore built in to like keep them fresh enough. But at the same time, Chef will take care of some of it because, like all the main packages, are ones, at least the ones that are not likely to cause crazy issues, are set to auto update, anyways. So, and any hot fixes I need to push to the servers, I can just update in the chef config and it'll roll out in 2 minutes. So.
Okay. Any more? All right, thanks, Pete.